folks, hope you all are doing well. I'm Karan Bandal from Economist site, and in this video, let's talk about India's vision to become a developed nation as outlined by the NITI Aayog. NITI Aayog is a top policy think tank of the Government of India. Established in early 2015, it is a fairly new institution and plays a crucial role in the decision making of the government. Recently, NITI Aayog released an approach paper in which it stated the desired destination for the Indian economy in 2047. The goal here is for India to become a developed nation by moving into high income classification based on GDP per capita metric. To be specific, policy makers want India to be a $30 trillion economy by 2047. And with a certain assumption on the population growth rate of India, they state that India will have a GDP per capita of $18,000 by then, if India is able to achieve this 30 trillion milestone. Look at how the World Bank classifies different countries or economies based on their GDP per capita. The Indian economy currently qualifies as a low middle income economy, with a population of roughly 1.4 billion and the GDP of around $3.5 trillion. India's GDP per capita comes in at a little over $2,500. Looking ahead, in the medium term, India looks set to grow at around 7% in real terms. So it is highly likely that in the next 5 to 6 years, India will move into the upper middle income category with a GDP of roughly $6.5 trillion. Now this upper middle income category is quite broad, and many nations find it difficult to move up and out of this bracket. This is also known as the middle income trap. NITI Aayog takes cognizance of this trap and proposes a few high-level structural changes. Number 1, improve India's capabilities in manufacturing and logistics. Number 2, bridge the gap between urban and rural incomes. And number 3, improve industry competitiveness, thereby transforming India's massive agricultural workforce into an industrial one. The hope is that these structural reforms will help India become a global hub not only for services but also for manufacturing, thus help India become a high-income nation. Achieving this $30 trillion target is not going to be easy. The approach paper itself clarifies that India needs a sustained growth of 7 to 10% for 20 to 30 years without interruption. In my assessment, this is how NITI Aayog calculated India's growth path. Let's start in March 2024 with the Indian economy at roughly $3.5 trillion. I am assuming the projected real GDP growth rate is 7% because India has comfortably surpassed this number post the pandemic. Let's say inflation averages at roughly 5%. That means the nominal GDP growth rate will be 12% per year. This is the projected nominal GDP growth rate in rupee terms. The projected growth in dollar terms will be lower than 12% because the rupee depreciates against the US dollar every year. This happens due to the fact that inflation in India runs higher than that in the United States. Having said that, India's inflation performance has improved substantially in the last 10 years. So it is reasonable to expect that the Indian rupee will depreciate at a much lower rate going forward. Between 2014 and 2023, rupee depreciated against the dollar by a little over 3%. So let's assume going forward the depreciation rate will stabilize at 2%. That means the nominal GDP growth rate in dollar terms will be 12 minus 2 equals 10%. So we are looking at a $3.5 trillion economy nominally expected to grow at 10% per year in dollar terms for 23 years. If I plug these numbers in a compound interest formula, it reveals that India will cross a $30 trillion mark by 2047. In summary, India's top policy think tank believes in India's potential to reach a developed nation status in the next 2 to 3 decades. This approach paper is a start. Now they will have to frame long-term policies to set India up on this growth path. It is going to be a tough ask, but as we saw, there is a path for India to get to its desired destination. I hope you found this analysis interesting. I'll speak with you again next week. Until then, take care.